I don't know about you, Clay, but this first taste of summer has got me hoping for a cold front is going to come through, but I don't think it was really this episode. Is that the best I've got? It's so hot I can't come up with anything. How long were you sitting on
that?
What's that?
How long were you sitting on that?
Well, it was either that or I go with Eminence Front, I think, right? And I think Eminence Front makes even less sense in the context. Yeah. But this is a punny Enterprise title. It's a front in a war, but a cold front is also a thing, meteorologically speaking, where cold air comes in and you feel better in the summer.
Well, I think much like this episode itself, that title is they thought about it a little bit too much for its own good.
Yes. Did they think? We'll figure that out. We'll play a quote from the episode, then we'll come back and we'll break down Cold Front.
What is that? That doesn't look like Starfleet issue.
It's because I'm not a member of Starfleet. Not that I wouldn't be honored to be one, sir, especially after spending time.
Who are you? How do you know what happened on the Helix?
Did Silik tell you who he was working for?
I'm the one asking questions, crewman.
Did he mention the Temporal Cold War?
What do you know about that?
A great deal more than you do, sir.
If you're not a member of Starfleet, then who are you?
I work for a different kind of organization. We make sure that people like Silik don't interfere with historical events.
I've never heard of a group like that.
That's because it doesn't exist yet.
All right, so Cold Front is the 11th episode in the first season, a whole lot of ones. It aired on the 28th of November, 2001. Written by Stephen Beck and Tim Finch, directed by Robert Duncan McNeil, who's Tom Paris on Voyager, making his first, I think, Enterprise directorial credit. In-universe date is September 12th, 2151. In this episode, Archer is confronted by a member of his crew who claims to be from 900 years in the future and is there to capture a Suliban operative who has boarded Enterprise. And just because I mentioned Duncan McNeil at this point, I will say this was I noticed the direction in this episode. I thought it was like really well shot in a lot of scenes where he used the camera to effectively convey storytelling in a lot of ways. Like the camera movement was effective at showing where the narrative was going in cases, and like they don't really do that. A lot of the directors, it was interesting. I just thought that he moved the camera really well in this, and it's something that you can't say about a lot of Star Trek episodes. But I thought the direction deserved credit, if nothing else, in this one. But you can either go off that, Clay, or I am curious to hear what you thought about Cold Front, because I think it's like a fascinating episode in a lot of ways. But what did you think?
Well, I think I need a question answered before I can tell you what I thought about this. Can you tell me what the hell actually happens in this episode?
No, I can't. So.
I have no clue what was going on. Like I'm not an idiot. I understand generally the idea that they're playing with, but like I didn't know what was going on as far as like the bad guy and the good guy. I mean, was the confusion like intentional?
Yes. I don't think that you get any answers to anything that goes on. All you get here is setup for what the Temporal Cold War is. And they don't tell you who's right, who's wrong, who's telling the truth, who isn't, and why any of this happened in the first place.
Yeah, I just found it very distracting and I thought it made Archer look like an idiot.
Yes, it does make Archer look like an idiot.
And you know, it was very hard for me to kind of care about anything because I wasn't really sure where it was going. And like I didn't know who was coming from where. And like I get the idea where it's like, oh, who can you trust? Blah 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 blah. But he trusts everybody really quickly.
Yes, he does.
And yeah, it just, you know, when they had that scene with T'Pol where he's telling T'Pol and Trip about this time traveler, I was just like clapping along with T'Pol where she's like, what did he say or show you that could make you believe any of this? He's like, well, he's got this like light up disc man from the future.
Yep.
And that was pretty convincing. And she's like, okay.
And even Trip's like, I've seen holograms before. Maybe there's some kind of hologram. No, Archer does the Mayweather thing from Fortunate Son, where whoever he talks to, he goes along with for the next 5 minutes. And it's really, he's really like shockingly ineffective as a leader with any kind of point of view here, where he trusts Daniels immediately. And then he goes to talk to the Suliban. And I thought his biggest mistake is when he's talking to the Suliban, and then T'Pol calls him on the communicator and he has to answer the phone basically in front of the guy who's got a gun. When she reveals that Daniels is the guy, he doesn't go, get Daniels the fuck out of here before he gets shot by the gun. There's no...
No, he's completely complicit. And is that also part of the... Like, I don't know. I feel like Archer is the character that needed to have some sort of grounding in this in order for this other stuff they're doing to work. And he doesn't have that because he's just flip-flopping back and forth. He's not really questioning anything. And ultimately, he doesn't have any opinion about what just happened.
No, it's very much like the Martha scene from Batman versus Superman, too, where he's like, he said Temporal Cold War. No one has ever said Temporal Cold War before, except for these two
My
people.
mother's name is also Temporal Cold War.
No, I think that's maybe the biggest problem. It continues to be a problem where Archer is not really well drawn. But if you're going to have chaos of the universe swirling around in this episode, which I can kind of get behind the idea of like no answers in this episode. And if you're just setting up the time travel, maybe that's effective. I have some counters to that, which we can go over later.
I also am not. This Temporal Cold War is going to be a real hard sell for me, I think.
Well, I guess we can start there then, and then maybe we can branch back to the other things. I think that, for me, what's hard about the Temporal Cold War at this point is that if you're going to... I think that all successful time travel is a story that uses time travel as a mechanism or a device, but it's not really about the time travel. And I think that the problem with the Temporal Cold War is that it feels like it's going to be a whole bunch of trivia about time travel, and when you get to the end of it, you're going to be like, this basically dismantles any kind of understanding of how the Star Trek universe works.
I was thinking that too. I was like, as soon as he opened up that, star map thing or temporal star map thing, and I was like, so the prime timeline is no longer a thing then, right? Because theoretically people are going back and fighting and changing shit all the time. So nothing means anything.
Right. We don't know which timeline is effective here. And because this episode doesn't give you an emotional sense of what's at stake with the time travel, beyond the fact that this guy is allegedly trying to stop people from time traveling and affecting things, all that you're left with are weird technobabble examples of time travel. And it's just not really interesting that all of that is happening. It's destructive to the narrative as well as not being really something that I want to latch my teeth into and be like, oh yeah, tell me more about time travelers going back to various points in time and who comes from which timeline and what, and who's from what time and who's from another. And it doesn't, it's just not very it's not effective enough to latch you into the story that they want here. And if Archer had a better sense of what the ramifications of this were, maybe it would work better, but he doesn't in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, that explanation where he's, what's his name? I don't remember
Daniels
the guy's name. Daniels.
Yeah.
Where Daniels is explaining the Temporal Cold War to Archer would be the perfect time to lay out what the stakes of this are, but he doesn't. And he's very vague about even what's happening. And so it's really difficult to...
Also contradictory, where he's like, we are sworn to not interfere with the past, but here I'm going to tell you exactly what we're doing here.
Rule number one of a fictional character who's sworn to not interfere is they always interfere. That's just what they do.
It's innate in time travel, but like the very setup of what they are supposed to do is flawed, really. And that goes into, it's not, they don't reveal in this episode why the Suliban pulled the cord out of the plug, basically to stop the engine from blowing up. Yeah,
they don't do that. They don't show you why Daniels might actually be the bad guy. Like you don't have any reason to trust Daniel. Well, I should say you don't have any reason to trust the Suliban, but you don't have any reason to trust Daniels either.
Right.
I'm sorry. You don't have any reason to trust the Suliban, but you don't have any reason to distrust Daniels.
You could go either way on Daniels, I think. Yeah.
Right. But like the Suliban hasn't done enough for you to go, oh yeah, maybe he's a good guy actually.
Yep.
Like when the show opens with the Shadow King there giving him some sort of like secrecy chameleon upgrade or whatever. I don't.
No, he downgrades him.
Oh, he downgrades him?
He takes his eyes away. He takes away his enhanced vision.
Oh, I thought he was giving him something else so he could do this mission.
No, it makes even less sense. He takes away an advantage that he has as punishment and then sends him out to do the mission where his enhanced eyesight might actually be a help to him in some way. So it's very strange. Yeah. But
regardless, like when you start the show with this character being in the presence of the evil emperor, I don't exactly trust him when he shows up later and he's like, don't you want to thank me for saving your life? So, no, you obviously have some ulterior motive. Like I
wouldn't have even remembered him from Broken Bow if they had told me that this was a different Suliban.
100%. Yeah, no idea. Yeah. No. Yeah. But yeah, they don't, I think taking a minute to at least lay out some sort of relatable stakes for this temporal Cold War thing would have gone a really, really long way.
Yeah. This is terrible serialized storytelling, really. Like if because they're trying to spread this Cold War thing across, right? The last time we heard it was in the pilot, and they're bringing it up here to kind of refresh yourselves that this is a thing, that's what's going on. But it's the failure of serial meeting episodic, because you maybe this would be fine in a more serialized story where you can go to the next episode and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to wait for my answer that's going to come. But because this is in such a standalone thing, the fact that you don't get any answers just feels like a colossal waste, because you don't know when. It's been 10 episodes since we saw the first time, so are we going to wait another 10 episodes to get back into it, or what are we supposed to expect from it? And it's it was the go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the thing that doesn't work for me is that there's no self-contained story that has any sense of resolution to it.
The plume, watching the plume is the only thing that feels
even the stuff with those people, like that other guy on the other ship is just like, yeah, whatever, just let me know when you're done.
Yep.
But like, there's no. For this episode itself, there's no sense of story being completed or told. This episode feels like if you had a plumber coming into your house and a guy coming into your house to fix your water heater, and they keep giving you contrasting information about like what's making things broken and what's making things work, and then ultimately they both just leave and everything works fine.
Right. Yeah.
Like there's no, I don't know what I'm supposed to be taking away other than, the plumbers and the water heater guys seem to not like each other.
Right, yeah. And you don't have a sense of whether or not you're going to have hot water for the
yeah. Like what the hell was Daniels even doing there? He was just trying to find the Suliban guy. Is that it?
Had he been there since the start of this?
I don't know.
He must have been, right? There's only 80 people on this ship, and they're not picking up new people anywhere that they go. He must have been hanging out doing the long con with them.
I guess. Nobody else seems to go like, who the fuck is that guy?
Right, yeah. And he's worked his way into delivering Archer's scrambled eggs in the morning. Like he's ingratiated himself enough into Archer's day-to-day. I mean, it's another thing of the episodic. It's like once this guy has more than 2 sentences strung together, you know that he's involved somehow in what's going to happen. And maybe there's a little bit of a twist here where he's the time traveler that no one really expected, but it's...
I have to say, so as soon as he showed up and they spent more than half a second on him, I was like, okay, this guy's either evil or he's going to die. And I was right.
Yep.
But I was definitely not expecting him to be a time cop. This episode really takes a turn about halfway in.
It's another episode of Archer being vaguely hit on by people where the guy's like, come back to my quarters. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this over in my quarters. After the drink with the captain, the last one, Archer's just desired across the galaxy, I suppose. Yeah, that's my fundamental. Like the episode's interesting because it kind of holds my attention just in how surreal a lot of it is, and that you're like, wow, it's like this incredibly generic Star Trek adventure that's draped in kind of time travel nonsense that the show is really not even trying to do anything. Like when they put the lock on the door at the end, is that some kind of time lock on that? Like, I don't understand what locking the door really does, and it's very creepy. Are they going to go back in there, sort of fiddle with stuff and see what the time travel was coming from? But it's the more you think about it,
and also like, sorry, finish. I'm sorry.
No, it's the more that you think about this one, the more that I just get worried about where the Temporal Cold War can go from this point, because it only seems like a bad idea, really. For Star Trek in particular.
Yeah, the thing with the door, like I kind of liked that final shot because it was kind of creepy and it is kind of like, ooh, what could possibly be in there? But then I was thinking about it, it's like it was just like he was living with a roommate.
Yeah.
Like what could he possibly be hiding in that like
5x4 room?
Yeah. I don't know. Like it's not like if you open the door and like look under the mattress, there's a bunch of future weapons or something. I don't know. It's just it's an odd thing to lean in on, as though like the contents of that room are somehow unknowable.
Right. It's like the perfect crime scene. You just have to lock down and never let anyone. I did like the final shot, which is kind of interesting. It was vaguely creepy, but just looking at the lock on the door and with the music plays. But yeah, I was honestly really surprised that nothing seems to counteract what Daniels said in this. I was expecting some sort of twist where someone had been lying, and maybe the Suliban is lying, but you don't really have enough information to go on whether or not he's actually lying or if he's doing something true. Like my gut tells me that the Suliban is lying and that Daniels is honest, but that seems like a strange use of Daniels, really, where Daniels doesn't have any reason to exist other than to come back and fail to do something, really. And
right.
I don't know, like you'd expect that Daniels would either reveal something if he's going to fail his mission, or he's going to accomplish his mission and stop the Suliban, and that would be the taste of what time travel cops are doing in this universe, and that they're preventing things from happening and changing the future. But he doesn't seem to do that. He seems to fail at what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, they don't even really get into the idea that the Suliban was saving the ship for some like long con reason. They have like one throwaway line where he's like, don't you want to know why I disconnected your power surge thing,
John?
And then Archer's like, I honestly don't know what's going on here in any sense. And he's like, he doesn't follow that up by being like, the Enterprise, the safety of the Enterprise is important for the future events. And also, why does the Suliban know about the future? Is it because of the shadow guy?
Shadow guy is telling them about the future.
Okay,
yep.
but still, like that would have been the moment to give you something, like some sort of like, Q type thing where they abstractly muse about the possibilities of the future regarding the Enterprise. Just something to grab onto other than like, nothing. I was going to say something to grab onto. Did remind me that is this the worst depiction of the vacuum of space ever put to film?
When the guy jumps out.
They open up the pod bay, the hangar bay door, and it's just like a light breeze.
Yeah, it's like a hairdryer on low setting. It's just billowing through Archer's hair.
Yeah,
as he walks back into the safety of the other room.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that like they suck all the air out, and like it was accurate that there's only so much air, and then once the air's gone, there's no more vacuum. But like Archer continues his action sequence in that room, I guess, while holding his breath,
and doesn't explosively decompress or anything. I mean, the Suliban like jumps out like it's a airplane jump. Like there's It's just the physics. I honestly didn't realize they had decompressed anything until Archer couldn't breathe when he got back in and was starting to pants, because I thought that there was like a force field or something that the alien just jumped out of.
I thought there was a force field too, but then I remembered that the NX-01 doesn't have any like force shields or anything.
Yeah,
like
they
that.
don't have force fields at this point, do they?
So he is more powerful than the very weak vacuum of space.
And just a little bit tangential here, but it's another bad thing about Archer where Trip is showing him the cable that got pulled out and saved the ship from exploding. And Archer's like, probably one of your guys pulled that out. And he walks away. And Trip's like, hey, no, like my crew didn't do that. They would have announced it. Why does Archer not question why the person was randomly pulling out the thing that saved the ship?
Right.
Knowing what was happening. And why does he think that person who has not told them that there's a plot to blow up their ship is doing anything good out of their heart? Archer just seems completely clueless as to what's going on with his crew and these other things.
Yeah. Everything about this episode feels really just kind of all over the place.
Yeah. Would you say that this is your least favorite of the ones so far, or are you intrigued by its strangeness?
I guess I'm a little intrigued by its strangeness, but it does. This episode to me felt like they were grasping at the Deep Space Nine straws. In terms of the
is it what I was
serialized?
Talking about? Yeah. Is it them attempting to do something serialized and not really understanding how they're supposed to lay this out appropriately?
Well, it's not just that. That's part of it, but it also feels like they're going for that sort of multifaceted war type approach where you're kind of caught in the middle of two sides sort of thing. And you have to kind of play the angles on it, Game of Thrones style a little bit. The Suliban are getting very, very close to changelings for me because apparently they can turn invisible and also shapeshift.
Yes. They can make themselves squishy.
Yeah,
the episode reminds me a lot of X-Files because they had that episode like Stretch or whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah.
And because
that's a good one.
That final shot of the door lock felt very X-Files-y to me.
Yeah. But yeah, it feels like they're trying to wade into the Deep Space Nine waters, but they're not. They didn't
look really before they leapt. They just kind of jumped into the deep end of the pool without sort of realizing whether or not there's a floaty in there.
I would argue, alternatively, that they didn't look to see what end they were jumping into, and they just like dove headfirst into the 3-foot end. And so then they just come out all dazed and not really sure what's going on.
Yeah, maybe that's. And yeah, I agree that I think that's definitely what it is. It's an attempt to do something in the style of DS9, or at least to do something like what the other series of television are doing at this point. But it's like if you're starting a series, maybe the complex time travel story is not the best way to like lay out an opening arc to go with. It's just so complicated.
It's the first season.
Yeah.
It's the first season and they're pulling out time war shit.
With multiple factions and multiple... it's not like it's like a simple like Terminator from the future is now back in the present day and he's going to kill you. It's, the Suliban are in one time, the Shadow Guys in another time. I'm from 900 years in the future. Here's some archaeologists back on Giza. It's like, it's too much, Daniel. It's like there's too much information here.
I would argue the way to do this is to have one episode where they just meet a time traveler.
Yep.
And the story involves the time traveler, whether or not they think he's telling the truth about being a time traveler. It's kind of benign as far as like what, it's not, there's none of this temporal war stuff. It's just sort of like they meet a time traveler. Maybe he's crazy. Maybe he's telling the truth. And then at the end, it's like, oh, I guess he is a time traveler. Because they go from not even like really, except for the one-off mentioning of the Temporal Cold War, they don't mention time travel at all in this series. And even in this episode, when it comes up, T'Pol is like, it is impossible. And our scientists have done research and have decided that it is not possible, never has been possible, and it never will be possible.
Yeah.
And that's a lot to kind of to adding the deconstructing of whether or not time travel is even possible in this episode is a lot to add on to everything else that they're already doing. So yeah, I think excuse me. I think it just needed to be simpler. I think you needed to kind of ease in to time travel on this show.
Yeah.
Because it's so, this show, for lack of a better term, is a lot more grounded than a lot of the other Star Trek shows are off the bat.
Yeah. More human.
Like that. Yeah, it's more human. A lot of this, their entire MO up to this point is we don't really have technology that can do that yet. And how do we do things without that future technology?
Yep.
So to jump from we don't even have shields on our ship to now we're dealing with time travelers, it just seems like it's a big jump.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. It's just so complicated. I mean, there was a TNG episode, listener Kyle's favorite, called Matter of Time. It might be something like that, where it's a time traveler comes onto the Enterprise and he's like, I'm a time traveler from the future. I'm here to study the Enterprise on this very important mission. And so the Enterprise goes about their business. And as the mission is unfolding, it's like a comet's going to hit a planet or something. Picard's like, you need to tell us, because you know from the future, like what we're supposed to do, because things are looking bad for this. And the time traveler goes, well, I can't tell you because that would impact things, right? And so they solve the mission. And then it's revealed that the time traveler is actually from the past. He just mugged and stole a time travel device from someone from the future in the past and brought it to his future. And so he couldn't tell anyone because he didn't actually know what it was, right? Like that's the gimmick there is he doesn't actually know the answer as to what they're supposed to do. But here, I feel like Daniels could have kind of had that role where if he is an agent from the future, him not being able to tell somebody about what is happening is something, it's at least a twist to put on him without giving him clearance to tell Archer everything while simultaneously telling him nothing of importance about it. Like he tells him everything except for what is going on. He gives him all the dressing of it except for like the nuts and bolts of what he needs to do. And a little twist there where Daniels is compromised and can't say things would have been better. And it also makes it more of a mystery as to whether or not Daniels is telling the truth, because if he can't tell you these things, it's very hard for him to actually prove that he is a time traveler, you know?
Yeah. I mean, when he pulled Archer aside, and he's like, "I'm from a group." My first thought was, "Oh, he's Section 31." That was the first thing I thought of. So when he said, "I'm a time cop," I was like, "Oh, that was not what I was expecting." Because Section 31 seems like a much more, grounded idea for this show.
Yes.
Even though it's very early in the Star Trek timeline for Section 30. Unless, do they already exist by this point? I don't know what the
Well, they're written into the charter,
is.
right? So there's no Federation charter, so they don't have a Section 31 of that yet. So maybe it's proto Section 31 or something.
Yeah, like the SAS instead of the CIA or whatever.
Yep.
Or maybe SAS is British. I can't remember. I think SAS might be the precursor to MI6 or something. I forget. But it's just really kind of like I applaud them for what they're trying to do, but I feel like they needed a few more like writers' room sessions to kind of hash it out. Like it feels. This is
even
another
introducing Daniels earlier than this. If Daniels had been there 3 episodes ago as some sort of crewman who had a minor role in something,
would have been a great way to write Mayweather out of the show.
Right.
If you just pick him and be like, Mayweather is actually a time cop. Oops, he gets killed at the end of this. What are we gonna do? But yeah, like it seems like one of those things where, kind of like Picard, actually, I feel like the writers know so much about what's going on that they're forgetting what information the people need.
I feel the opposite. I feel.
Oh, really? Okay.
I feel the writers being like, I don't know what we're going to do with this. Just we have.
That's possible too. Yeah.
We have to. I feel we have to set something up, but we don't have anything locked in stone at this point. We haven't thought about it enough. So just give incredibly vague things about the future and the past and the fact that time travel is possible, and that'll be enough to sort of build off of. But while this may be enough to build a arc off of, it's not enough to build an episode around.
It does. I mean, that is possible too. It does feel like another thing where it's like they, at the beginning of their writers' room meetings or whatever, the Temporal Cold War was this thing that they decided they were going to do. But every time it comes up, they just kick the can down the road.
Yeah.
Like the first time it came up, we're not going to explain this now. It's something we're going to do later. And then it comes up again, and they're like, I don't know. Let's just do what we can, and we'll try and figure this out later. Like
right.
that is also another possibility. But yeah, it did feel to me like, I guess that's sort of like two ends of the same, they're kind of equal two sides of the same coin. There we go.
Yeah, it's a difference of intent, I think. It ends up with the same
right.
kind of feeling in terms of whether or not you like the episode or you think that the episode's good, but I think that the intent there is Picard, it's kind of an opposite in that Picard has too much information that they can't insert into the amount of runtime that they have, where this has no information, so it can't fill out the 45 minutes that it needs to make an episode.
Picard was trying to be clever by keeping things too close to the vest, like by having too much information and keeping things too close to the vest. This is trying to be clever by keeping things close to the vest because they don't actually have the information.
Right. Yeah. And just
trying to cover up for their lack of information by being like abstract.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, and that's pretty much it. We can wrap it up there. It's just a strange, like I was sort of mesmerized by the episode in some ways. Like I don't really remember it. I don't remember anything about the Temporal Cold War. So everything that happens here is going to be something very, it's new to both of us at this point, but it's, I knew watching it that it couldn't possibly amount to anything, but I still spent the entire episode going, this has got to do something. Like you can't just have this. And like even further, which we haven't talked about, the religious awakening stuff that's going on here. I actually really liked it. It reminded me strongly of TOS. There's a lot of scenes of TOS where people are just having like a luncheon buffet while they're standing around talking to each other.
I was thinking of Star Trek V.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I in contrast to what Archer does poorly in the other scenes, I really like Archer when he's talking to sort of religious fundamentalists that he's invited on his ship because his mission is to meet people. And they're like, do you believe in God? He's like, well, keeping my options open here. I don't want to commit to anything right now. And T'Pol has her answer about like worshiping logic and stuff like that. It was just kind of it was like a neat melding of real world awkwardness paired onto this Star Trek thing of meeting a new alien species. And I thought that was kind of neat. Like it goes to the human aspect of the show where Archer's out there trying to meet people and he runs into religious fundamentalists and he doesn't really know how to interact with them in a way that doesn't feel offensive, but he wants to study them and he doesn't want to tell them the truth about what he thinks and things like that. It was just kind of a neat small version of an Enterprise story, which I think this series continues to do pretty well.
Yeah, that's another thing too. I wish I was kind of... Yeah, I feel like both of us are kind of really liking the smaller things in this series so far. And so I think that's also part of why when they throw the Temporal Cold War at you, it's like, I really like it when nothing happens on this show. Right. But like as for what I was talking about, as far as I wish this episode had like some sort of self-contained story. I wish that the stuff with the pilgrims played into the story at all, other than just being like a nice little aside.
Yeah.
I was expecting whatever that starburst was to be central to the plot.
Right.
But it's not. It's just sort of like stuff that they're kind of doing on the side. I thought it was going to be like some sort of temporal convergence point or some shit like that.
Yep.
But it just never comes up again. And even at a certain point, those guys just disappear.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the biggest conflict of that plot is how many people want to come over to the ship to watch it. It's Archer's throwing like a Super Bowl party, and he's like, "Hey, tell your friends, like, come on over to my place. We'll watch it through the view screen." And like, not to mention the fact that they just keep everybody on the ship once like they call red alert or whatever. Yeah,
they don't go. Thank you for coming. Sorry, we have something to deal with. Send you back to. What's the other guy doing the whole episode? Is he just like hanging out reading a book while the entire complement of his transport is over on the Enterprise?
Captain. Yeah, he's just over there. I guess he's only paid to bring these people here, so he does. I mean, his characterization is pretty on par. Where Archer's trying to like introduce himself, and like he's very unimpressed by what the Enterprise is doing.
I do. My favorite thing about this show so far is that consistently, the humans always interact with alien species like in a really excited way, and all the alien species just think that they're just lame as hell.
Yes, yeah. They've all been there, done that, but the Enterprise is very. They're like Enterprise are like Mormon missionaries that come to your door. It's like a huge smile on their face, and you're just like, I've been through this before, buddy. Like I don't need to hear this spiel. The only other like not even vital to this, but I do like the character of Phlox. interestingly. Yes. I wouldn't call him annoying. He's borderline annoying, but he's a grounded performance that I think he's always been consistent in that he's like a culture sponge. He just wants to learn about everything.
Right.
And I like that about him. And it got me thinking, like, he's a fairly, I would say that maybe it's not fair. The doctors across the board are fairly, this is probably not true, but the doctors always strike me as characters that I'm never particularly interested in, but I do like Phlox as a doctor character, even if he hasn't done much doctoring. I think that he's, especially compared to the rest of the Enterprise crew, he's fairly well-defined at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a personality.
Yeah.
You know, he's not just a doctor. He's clearly interested in other stuff. He's, I mean, 8 episodes. How many episodes of this have we done?
This is 11.
Oh, wow, 11. Jeez. 11 episodes in, he's more defined and has more character than Crusher ever had across 7 seasons.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, it's he's got a he's a good small bursts player.
Yes.
Like the times that they use him really well.
I'll be interested to
But they
see
don't
his
use him a
first
ton.
his first focused episode will be interesting to see
yeah.
where you can go with this kind of character.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's coming up in a couple episodes. And that's pretty much it. We can wrap it up there. We'll play a quote.
I did want to point out one more thing. When Malcolm leaves the bridge and puts Mayweather in charge, and he gets in the captain's chair, and he's like, "Do you think they'll be mad if I shoot a torpedo?" What are you, 6? There's another ship right there. I think they would be mad if you just shot a torpedo.
That was another strange scene just because it didn't fit in, really. And while I'm not opposed to little sort of slice of life sequences like that, it feels like that's a cold open scene, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
It was just, I'm all for giving Mayweather some kind of personality and stuff like that, but it felt like a scene that was inserted because the script was coming in short or something. And I think that in a lot of ways, the Phlox sequences feel that way too, where they have Phlox go over with them, which is perfectly in character for him. But him having a 5-minute scene where he talks about doing like yoga and eating breakfast with them is like, well, I don't know if we need this at this point, but what else do we got?
Yeah, it makes what am I trying to say here? Scenes in these shows are so short that scenes in these shows, you expect them to be part of the plot in some way. Even if that's like adding, like you just get a little bit of a plot thing at the end of the scene or whatever to just kind of like give it that puzzle piece feeling. And that scene with Mayweather doesn't really do that, and some of the Phlox scenes don't really. I mean, that whole plot with Phlox ultimately doesn't amount to anything.
No.
So I just think that's part of the problem with this episode is like it's so hard to kind of grasp onto what is going on that those scenes that are even less cohesive to the story stand out as being such.
Yeah. All right, we'll call it the day there. We'll play a quote from the episode. We'll come back and give some patron thoughts and then give our final thoughts about Cold Front.
The transport ship has left. We're ready to resume course. Have you learned how it works?
Not a clue. Starfleet's in store for one hell of a report. I'm not quite sure where to begin.
I'd be glad to help.
First thing in the morning. I don't know about you, but I could use a good night's sleep.
Agreed.
All right, everybody, if you enjoyed the content today, you can go to patreon.com/Lipinski File and support the show there. A couple dollars a month gets you extra stuff. You get extra podcasts, extra commentary videos, extra behind-the-scenes nonsense. You can get access to the Discord, the exclusive Discord server for the Captain backers, all that stuff and more. Patreon.com/Lipinski File. And as always, we give a special shout-out to our Captain tier supporters. Special thank you goes to, as soon as I click the correct button to make the list pop up, Alec DeWolf, Andrew Charlog, Ben Douglas, Captain Brazen, Cardinal Doomsday, Chris Tinsley, Christian Michaels, Christian Pauth, Darth Mosk, David Beardmore, David K, Dwayne Hackett, Eric Johnson, Eric's Antoine, HH28, Jacob123, Jakey's Gamer, Joint Mango, Jordan Cooper, Kevin Lowry, Kevin Reyes, Kyle Barrett, Mad Courier 6, Matt Cutler, Matt Houston, Matt Ross, Mike Burnett, Mike Harris, Nathan Elliott, Neil Brennan, Nick Sergi, Robert Cummins, Russell Elwood, Samuel Custer, Grim Santos, Sean, Stefan Minson, Tark Latif, Tom Howells, and Vault 13 Hero. Thank you very much, guys, for supporting the show. Now we'll do patron thoughts. Patrons leave their thoughts about upcoming episodes, and we read them. I'm going to go to the top here. Matt Ross says, the Temporal Cold War returns with a mighty, huh? So the whole point was to show that there's a spy on Enterprise, which had a pretty map and a tracking Silic, who's there. Why exactly? Is this Enterprise actually supposed to be dead? I don't really get what this episode is about, other than reminding us that a Temporal Cold War is a thing. I do like that this can be a premise. I'm just not sure this is the A story with the visiting aliens. The banter between the crew on time travel is fun. The aliens visiting the star didn't really add anything. The best part was the alien captain acting annoyed at the Enterprise bothering him, and the disinterest in Enterprise announcing their exploring mission, almost like saying, there goes the neighborhood. In the end, why not rip apart Daniel's room to see what's in there? Isn't space a premium on Enterprise? Here's something that I still question in the episode. How long can Archer hold his breath in a vacuum? I mean, Silic opens the bay doors to space, there's no shielding, and Archer not only pulls himself up a catwalk and into a repressurized room, but is able to talk. Great lungs on that guy.
Like, why, if Daniels is coming back in order to stop Suliban from doing whatever, right? Why don't they do the thing where it's like, I mean, I guess obviously we don't know what the reason that he saved the ship, but even after he saves the ship, Daniels doesn't change his like approach as if Suliban has changed the future at all. You know what I mean?
No, there's there's no commenting on. Daniels neither reveals why it was vital that the Enterprise doesn't get destroyed, which is fine. He doesn't need but there's not even an acknowledgement that whatever happened was the right thing that needed to happen or the wrong thing that needed to happen. Right. Yeah.
Like imagine if they do the time cop thing a little bit earlier, right? And so Archer knows that Daniels is from the future, and he's like, I'm here. I'm trying to get this guy. I don't know which one of these people he is, but he's somebody. I have to get him before he drastically changes the future. And so then they get hit with that, whatever the thing that causes the ship to start rocking. And the Suliban guy goes and he puts the thing in and he saves the ship. And then after that, his demeanor changes because he has drastically changed the future by saving the Enterprise from blowing up.
Yeah.
So now you kind of get stuck in Daniels ends up in like a reverse Yesterday's Enterprise kind of situation where he's in the past and now he has to decide whether or not he's going to blow up the Enterprise.
Yeah. I like the idea of a time traveler coming back and changing something, and then because he has changed something, he's no longer aware of what the timeline is going to look like.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
So if he did something like this early, and that also gets around the fact that you can't ask him what to do, because if he says, I changed this event, like the non-destruction of the Enterprise or whatever, changed history at this point, and I can no longer help you with what is supposed to happen to get to a point.
I mean, that's they go from Yesterday's Enterprise, which is the entire history of the timeline hinges on whether or not the Enterprise C, is it the Enterprise C? It is, right? Whether or not the Enterprise C blows up.
Yep.
Fighting the Romulans or whatever it is. And into this one where it's like he casually saves the ship from exploding, and it's like not really that big of a deal.
Yeah. To be clear, this the Suliban. Even more confusingly, the Suliban saves the Enterprise.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which is not that we've been way off, but I think that's just another weird twist that's never like explained as to like, is Daniel supposed to allow the Enterprise to blow up at that point, or what is he?
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like if you introduce him earlier, and so but you don't show that why he's there, like what he's there to stop from happening. And he's just like, hi, I'm a time cop. I'm here. I got to get this guy. He's from the future, or he's gonna do something. He's trying to change the future. So I got to get him. And then he fails, and Suliban saves the Enterprise from blowing up. And then Daniels' whole demeanor changes.
Yeah.
Where he's like, now, okay, he has saved the Enterprise from blowing up, but if the Enterprise still blows up, then we can maintain the timeline. So then Daniels starts going. Changing from the quote-unquote good guy into the possible bad guy.
Right.
And he's using the gotta save the future excuse as to why he's going to kill 200, 150 people or whatever it is at that point on the ship.
Yes, right.
And so, like, then you have a story where you kind of get the you get that future that yesterday's Enterprise kind of feel from Archer when he is now debating, is this guy telling the truth? If he is, does my ship and my complement of crew, do we all have to die in order to maintain a future that I don't even know what that means?
Right.
You've got some stuff to play with there instead of just looking confused for 40 minutes.
It also makes the Daniels time cops more of a nuanced group of characters because they can either be allies or enemies depending on the situation at that point, right? Like whatever they consider to be the actual timeline that they need to stick to, they can either help you get there or harm you trying to get back to that point.
Right, yeah.
Jakey's Gamer says, I never really cared for the execution of the Temporal Cold War or the fact that they started Enterprise off with a time travel story in general, but hearing Daniels explain it again on rewatch makes me think the idea itself is pretty interesting. It makes sense that at some point in the future, different species will develop safe, stable methods of time travel, and since it could be used as a weapon, there would be governments and agencies trying to keep each other in check to avoid mass destruction. There's a great story or even a series in there somewhere. I just don't think that this is the right place for it. Phlox is good here. I've always appreciated his character trait of wanting to fully experience other cultures and really having no shame in doing so. The rest of the episode itself is fine, but the ending always gets me. There's no reason to lock up Daniel's quarters and not search through it, other than to leave a plot thread open for a future episode in the most conspicuous way possible.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that would be my biggest change is I would introduce the time cop way earlier.
Yep. In this episode, or you mean earlier
in this episode?
Yeah.
I would expose Daniels as a time cop, like in the first 15,
cold open,
like short, even the cold open, because I mean, you could do a thing where he comes in and he's like, I'm from the future, and like, well, you're not from the future, and he says, well, later on today, you're going to run into a group of people on this transport ship who are pilgrims to this thing, and they're like, what? And then that happens, and like, oh, okay, maybe this guy is from the future, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is more interesting than what they're trying to play it too close to the vest, whether or not it's because they don't want to. They're trying to be clever, like I said, but whether they're trying to be clever about what they have planned or because they don't have anything planned.
Yeah. Poindexter G says, definitely more coherent than the last go at the Temporal Cold War. Still more questions than answers. I did like the subplot of Phlox being interested in the Pilgrims. It's nice to run into someone friendly for once. They're pretty friendly. Stefan Minton says, cold front, scrambled eggs just the way you like it. The universally acknowledged way of saying, I am from the future, but you can totally trust me. It is humanity's first mission into deep space, but even so, Archer and Trip seem way too trusting when it comes to Daniels and his fantastical explanations. Although I suppose there's a good chance that Archer and Trip are just hallucinating the entire story after taking a sip of the Vucentil in Archer's quarters. After all, the alien who gave them the bottle did say it would enhance the experience. That's a good point, actually. That it was a strange little diatribe.
Yeah, they have that like mind-altering drink that they both drink,
yes,
but nothing ever happens.
They drink while having a meeting about saving the ship.
We have to talk about the future. Let me take this acid first.
This will be easier to understand if we're all tripping balls. Trust me.
Yeah.
After all, the alien who gave them the bottle did say it would enhance the experience.
Cut to Archer thinking he can walk through walls because of that thing that he's got.
Well, they play that scene like it's exactly from the episode where Archer walks it through the walls and everyone's like, wow, but then it cuts to reality and it's just him bumping into the wall over and over again.
He's just face down, caught in some like sheets or something.
I remember not really caring for the way the Temporal Cold War played out, but as far as setup goes, it's not doing a bad job here. 3 bottles of the good stuff out of 5. People are generally positive on this.
Yeah, I'm surprised. It's I don't know. Maybe we're just getting too cynical in our almost 10 years of doing this.
A lot of these people are reflective too. So
True.
There's a difference there. Captain Bruce, go ahead.
I was thinking the scrambled eggs thing. Do you think, is it possible because Kelsey Grammer was the captain of that ship in the episode where the Enterprise keeps blowing up because they got caught in the temporal whatever?
It's cause and effect in TNG.
Do you think that he's sending a message that he doesn't know what to do with his tossed salad and scrambled eggs back to the past. And that's like the key line that Daniels knows to get to Archer in order to prevent Kelsey Grammer's ship from getting caught in the bubble in the future.
He's there to save the Bozeman. It's that.
And I don't know how Roz figures into this.
That meme of Cheers is just the TNG episode set on the holodeck where all the characters have been obviously in there.
Yes.
Is it not? What's Lilith? Lilith was in a TNG episode as well.
Was she really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah, they all were. Yeah.
Captain Brazen says, "Remember the Temporal Cold War? Yeah,
Ted Danson. We got to get Ted Danson on a Star Trek show.
I know. He's in the Orville.
He would be great.
That's it. That's all I know.
Oh, he's on the Orville?
He's on the Orville.
That's like having Hydrox instead of Oreos.
Yeah, I don't remember the Temporal Cold War either. Sorry, I edited your
Did you know
comment
what
there.
I learned? I didn't look this up to make sure that this is true, but it's just one of those weird enough things that I believe it. That Hydrox, the cookies Hydrox, actually predate Oreos.
I think I've heard that before, but I also don't know if it's true.
If it is, it makes a lot of sense to me because, as the person said where I read it, why would you ever want a cookie called a Hydrox?
Yeah. It's Hydrox sounds very British. I would not be surprised if that was a British cookie.
Yeah, it sounds like a cleaning product.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, or a fancy hotel.
And you know what else I discovered? I learned this a long time ago. You know why they're called Hydrox? Because of how much hydrogenated oil is used to make that white stuff in the middle.
Oh.
It's basically a scientific way of telling you these are terrible for you.
Yeah. Heart attack in a can or a package, I suppose. Hydrox. I do like Hydrox, though. I don't think there's anything wrong with those cookies.
Yeah, they're fine.
Remember the Temporal Cold War? Yeah, me neither. This is Captain Brazen. Crewman Daniels does, and he knows how you like your eggs cooked, too. The continuing setup for the story arc is okay, but it's still sharing too much screen time with other plot lines, in my opinion. This time it's the religious aliens visiting the ship and Phlox learning about their culture, which is quaint, but nothing more. That ending shot on Daniel's door being locked with the ominous music cue playing is definitely on the nose. We get it. More wibbly-wobbly, time-wimey stuff will be happening later on. The concept of the Temporal Cold War, though, is great. It makes sense that at some point, various alien cultures would develop the technology to safely travel time for peaceful exploration or to use it for nefarious purposes. A temporal alliance or agency would be responsible for jumping to different eras to protect the timeline. A show could come from this idea, and visually we could see previous Trek aesthetics from the 60s, the TOS movies era, DS9, etc. Feasible or not, it's a great concept for a completely different show, though. 2 great points out of 5.
You know what would make everybody really mad? To point out that the Temporal Cold War makes it possible that Enterprise is not the only show unaffected by the Kelvin timeline.
Yes.
Because
you could tie that in.
Who's to say if everybody's just traveling back and forth through time?
Yeah.
You know what would make this a lot easier? I bet the people who win the Temporal Cold War are the ones who develop some sort of like winged time travel suit. that they can 3D print in like an hour and a half if they need to.
As long as you're in the right era of TOS, I think that would work.
I was thinking when the guy when Daniels is talking to Trip and he says that he's from Illinois and he's like, well, I'm not from a place called Illinois. And he's like, oh, well, as long as it's from Earth. And he's like, well, yeah, it depends on what you consider Earth to be.
Yep.
I was thinking like, how much is there that people get is there enough there for people to get pissed off if that isn't addressed by the time jump in Discovery?
Yeah.
Because the time jump in Discovery is like what, 3,000 years?
No, it's 1,000, right? So
1,000.
Discovery
Okay, so
is
it's like
landing
right about-
around where he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God. Is this gonna tie in somehow?
It could.
Oh, I'm kind of interested, but also really afraid that they're going to do that. but like, if that's the case, if they're 1,000 years in the future in Discovery and like Earth is fine, are people going to get mad that they didn't stick to canon? By having
Yeah, they
Earth
land
some
and they
sort of
open up in
destroyed?
Illinois, and it's like, welcome to the state of Illinois on Earth.
The first shot is in like downtown Chicago, and Michael Burnham's like, it looks fine to me.
Well, Yates says, I didn't get digging out Silk's eyes as punishment, but leaving everything else intact. I just couldn't get around why you would want to make your agent less capable. The religious sects in this series seem different to all the other Star Treks, and I can't tell you why. It just does to me. I like Daniels, and I also can't stop thinking about the actor in the first episode of Scrubs, walking around telling everyone he's a tool. A great story arc starts here, but I don't think the episode itself is all that great, although I did really like all the intrigue and uncertainty. And don't you think that they had every reason to go after that ship at the end?
I am now really concerned that we just cracked what season 3 of Discovery is going to be.
Yeah, the people have been talking about it, so we're just behind the eight ball because we haven't realized what Enterprise is, but people are very aware that the timelines are lining up with the Cold War stuff, I think.
Boy. Yeah. All right, well, we'll see.
Neil Brennan says, Cold Front, I just don't think I like Bakula as a Star Trek captain. Every time he gets something to sink his teeth into, like here, it's just so workmanlike. Oh, boy. Kyle Barrett with the final comment, I believe. Yes, final comment. You know you weren't blown away by an episode when the only thing you want to talk about is Archer's weird salt and pepper shakers. I don't dislike the Temporal Cold War. I think it's an intriguing concept, but I can't work up too much enthusiasm about it either, at least right now. This is another meh episode that I wish offered a little more explanation for what the point of everything was. I get that they want the audience to feel as confused as the crew, but they push it a smidgen too far and it's hard to care. Captain Fraddock is my spirit animal, and I wish we had seen Daniels in previous episodes to sell the twist, like Seska and Voyager. But hey, we get the first mention of movie night, which will be a fun aspect of the show going forward.
I do like that they seem to have a Netflix account on the Enterprise.
Yes, and they're pulling up the Netflix movies that you end up on after scrolling for half an hour, so I can't really blame them.
I just saw an article online that the number one movie in America 3 weeks in a row is this low budget horror movie called Wretched.
Yep.
It's been on top because it is a new release that is playing exclusively in drive-ins.
Oh, nice.
So it is actually the quote from the director was, "One day will be a Jeopardy question. That what is the most successful but lowest box office grossing movie of all time?"
Yeah. No. Well, good for him anyway, and a good decision to put it out in the drive-thrus, I guess. That's it. Patrons, thank you very much for your thoughts about the episode. Cold Front, Clay, what are you going to give it on a scale of 1 to 5? This will be interesting for our rating here.
I think I'm going to go 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, because it's not, I mean, I guess it's not complete enough of a story for me to really say it's worth watching.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's worth watching because of the stuff it sets up, but
I'm going to give it a 2 as well. I think it's, I was intrigued by it. I was kind of, as I said, I was a little bit mesmerized, but I think it's pretty weak. And once it was over, I was not really all that pleased with it. More explanation is encouraged for things like this. So I'm going to give it a 2. Clay will give it a 2.
You know, speaking of Bakula, you know how he's got that one facial expression?
Yep.
I've also realized that he's got one way of delivering lines as well, which I find distracting. And it's a way that he like never really believes what he's saying, as though he's like constantly giving his lines. He's telling people his lines over like a PA system or something, where he's like, well, Daniel said that he's from the future, and I personally look forward to the future and everything that it brings. Like it's that kind of weird cadence that I never really believe he believes what he's saying.
Yeah. No, it's he does seem he does have a way of, and I think sometimes maybe it works to his advantage here in this episode, but it generally doesn't. He is very I don't know if I'd call it, it's like a happy-go-lucky delivery or something. Yeah, he's very...
It's like Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, we'll have more to talk about with Archer, but this was not a good Archer episode. I don't think he doesn't come out looking particularly good here. Guys, thank you very much for supporting the show. Thank you for listening. Patreon.com/thepensky file if you want to support the show there. Otherwise, the penskyfile.com/links is where you can go for all the links to all the social media and stuff. The Discord you can join. All that good stuff. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
You know who would have been a great Star Trek captain? Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, he would have been great in Galaxy Quest too, or some sort of movie parody.
Oh, he would have been so good in Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to see that movie.
Anything you want to say?
Anyway, new Rotten Horror Picture Show should be out now. We're covering The Innkeepers, and Batman Badass should be back pretty soon. Same old. I've got nothing new to say.
It all continues.
Oh, also, Sean, my co-host for Badass, has a crowdfunding going on right now for a graphic novel he's working on called The Plot Holes. So if you're looking for a new comic book in your life, check that out. It's on Indiegogo. Mm-hmm. He needs the money because he's already like 200% past his goal.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a cool story. I've read the first script and I've seen a lot of the artwork, and it's gonna be very neat.
Check out Sean's Indiegogo. So just Google Indiegogo Sean Murphy and then plot lines, and you'll pull it up immediately.
Plot holes. Sorry.
That's it, I think. Guys, we're done. Thank you very much for listening. Cold Front is over. The next episode is dun 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 Silent Enemy. I'm not negative on Enterprise at this point. And you know what's the weirdest thing about it, Clay? I know you don't watch the theme song. I'm starting to associate the theme song like Pavlov's dog with the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I skip it all the time, but every time, but that skip button doesn't come up until after
that. It's been a long
road. And I was like, okay, I'm in it.
Yeah.
I actually, I just watched Armageddon for the first time in like 15 years last night. I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, also written by Diane Warren.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's a better song, though.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but the Enterprise theme song has like sunk itself into me being like, this is what this show is. Like
I think that's what people talk about when they say that it like grows on you.
Yeah.
Because I don't like it.
No,
I don't think it's a good song, but it is undeniably
Star Trek Enterprise. It's
show.
undeniably Star Trek Enterprise when it comes on. Yeah. It's weird. Enterprise's cold opens are strange too. They're very short. And then
Real
they
short,
go right into the theme song. It's almost like shocking how short they are sometimes. All right, we got to get out of here. Thank you guys very much for listening. We will see you next time.